What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So today we're going to be looking at the Batgirl gameplay. We're going to be taking some time to discuss a few concepts. I'm going to be tooting a few of my horns. I don't always want to, but I feel like in this case and in this position, it's necessary that we take a look at some of these things. It's not that we want to kind of just throw stuff out there, but we really need to revisit some concepts and some of the things that we, kind of discussed and some contentions that I've had to argue against in the community that are coming to a point where those contentions were quite unnecessary because they made no sense at the time. But nonetheless, I'm not going to let my very grim approach ruin this very cool trailer that they put together for Barbara Gordon. I think so far they've improved. I think from the Nightwing, even through Robin and even through Batgirl, we've gotten to see something really cool in terms of this game. In fact, I would almost argue that these devs were purposefully holding off, some of the good stuff until this point in time, which is fine in my opinion. Another thing I want to say is this video may not necessarily be able to do enough justice to this trailer because even though it's a 2-minute trailer, there is a load of information in here. I mean, some of the enemy NPCs look different in a sense. Like this one that's being beaten here, he has some sort of a mask on that I don't know if it looks like a pig or something. And so all I can think is Professor Pig, maybe. And that might be one of the enemies that they have just foreshadowed, or maybe not. Who knows? You even see an enemy here that, Nightwing is, that Red Hood pretty much does a takedown on. He looks like he's got some kind of a black mask. So are they foreshadowing that Black Mask is going to have a crew in this game? That's also another possibility. So I don't think if we do one video, we're going to get a lot of the information. So maybe some stuff is going to be coming down the line over the next few days on my part if I do have time. So let's go ahead and jump into this whole thing and look at how Batgirl is designed, developed, and some of the gameplay concepts behind her. So before we go ahead and we start talking about that, let's look at some technical side. So this says footage captured in-engine contains gameplay and custom cutscenes. So that way you know that this representation of the game is not necessarily going to be what you're going to be playing in your controller. There's a mixture of all kinds of stuff. For those of you who've been on the channel, I've shown you guys some Unreal Engine trickery that can be used to do some really nice gameplay, trailers and, put footage and mash it with some gameplay. And so you guys kind of have a little feel for that. So this is something where I feel like they've just done within the Unreal Engine sequencer. And it looks like it was rendered in 30 FPS, even though the videos, I think, are in 1440p. You can scale it up in YouTube. That's the final rendering of the video production. But I think the in-game gameplay or in-game cutscenes were captured at 30 FPS. So that's just one thing I wanted to go ahead to put out there, because some people might say, well, this might look like I could play it on, the former generation consoles. And yes, you could play Gotham Knights on the PS4 and Xbox One, in my opinion, if it didn't have networking. I concede that the network side of the multiplayer might be the biggest issue for the game. And so we see that at first, and so we go ahead and we look at this character, and they do a really cool pan around Gotham. Now, this GCN building that Warner Brothers Games Montreal would not stop showing is just telling us that they're trying to pay some homage to the world that they built in the Arkham Origins game. Yes, largely the team that designed that game compared to the team that's designing Gotham Knights has kind of, in a sense, been transformed based on, the hires and the individuals that are in those positions. But I think the developers are quite aware and still are very in tune with their Arkham Origins game. Now, I have to admit, for the longest time, I thought they probably wanted to pretend like Arkham Origins never happened. But the truth is it actually did happen, and they actually showcased that, we got Arkham Origins in mind. So we look at this whole street brawl going on. I think these guys are taking on some armored truck, these bad guys of some faction. There are GCPD, vehicles everywhere. They probably were able to outgun the police officers. It always seems like criminals, for some reason, are always, in a position where they don't really care about police. They just find a way to be able to subvert that system. Isn't that something? And then they show her bat symbols, basically shadowing that this character is an associate of Batman, has been a pivotal role, in, say, characters that are around him all the time. So this is actually very cool and very unique for me, because I've always wanted to play this character. The moment this game was first revealed, I said to myself, I'm going to be playing Batgirl. There's no doubt about that. So you see Batgirl coming in to take, this street crime down. And the first thing that she does is, just like her teacher and her dad's, good buddy, Bruce, she's prowling across the aerial, structures, trying to get herself an aerial advantage, which is what most of the knights would do. But hers is very Batman-esque in the way they show it here. I'm not saying that the others aren't Batman-esque. I'm just saying that she does the same thing. And for those of you who may or may not remember, you saw something quite similar in the very first reveal of Gotham Knights. She was prowling on top of some of the high structures to gain an aerial advantage. The next thing she does is she does some kind of a silent takedown, something that's very similar to what maybe Catwoman would have done in the Arkham games. And so the other guys, they don't necessarily hear what's going on. They're just kind of like still oblivious. And so she hasn't necessarily alerted them. And then she's jumping on different cars and trucks. Apparently there's going to be some of that traversal where you can use some of the street structures to actually brawl. So that's actually pretty cool. And she now does a loud takedown, and the fight begins, and Barbara starts to knock some folks in the teeth with her weapon. So the way that they actually present this, you kind of get to see these. Now, these are cutscenes. This is not the gameplay. The gameplay version of this is what they actually showed in 2020. Now, I have to go back and I have to actually mention this. The 2020 gameplay, I've heard a lot of people tell me that they felt that gameplay was faked. And I said to them, there's no way they faked that gameplay, because that gameplay is actually the game itself. And they said to me, but that's not possible, because that gameplay looked one certain way, and this gameplay from here did not necessarily look the same way. And I thought to myself, I don't necessarily think that many people really comprehend how these developers actually set up their games. They brought out that gameplay to showcase what they already had, and that was pre-alpha gameplay, but it was still the same thing. They had developed this game to a very large extent. I just think they were in the optimization and completion phase, and the PlayStation 4 consoles did a number on them. So if you're still kind of wondering as to that particular side of things, especially where the brawl starts out, you're going to start to see that there are some takedowns that are quite similar. She has this, takedown that's like a clothesline that she does in that gameplay trailer to one of the enemy NPCs inside of that room that had a gun, because she does a loud takedown. Robin does a silent takedown, right? And you see that same takedown even in this particular video. So everything you're seeing here is just a much more, curated render of all of that stuff. She's literally fighting with this tonfa and just basically taking out baddies. And that's just something that has already been in the game for about 2 years. And so she's also got her batarang, and she's using her grapple to do some really cool takedowns. I think all of the knights will probably have this, but they were showing it here just to emphasize that Ms. Gordon is really serious about how she actually fights in a Batman style. And bam, she does the batarang takedown AoE special ability. This is a really huge deal for those of you who've pretty much been playing the Batman games. You know that this is definitely a concept that was taken from the Arkham games. This was also implemented in Batman Arkham Origins, and it was an Arkham Knight. I think it was in Arkham City as well. Arkham City is where a lot of the mechanics really changed. Like, I think Rocksteady thought to themselves, how can we destroy every possible, new concept that will ever come out in the next 10 to 15 years in superhero games? And they just went for it. So this is actually pretty cool. I think this might be for crowd control of some, kind, or maybe if there are baddies on the floor. I don't know if they'll implement it like they did in the Arkham games. But then they showcase this particular suit. And I said to myself, man, why would they just do us like this? And they have Barbara just gliding, and something really interesting happens. She makes her way to Blackgate Prison. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a highlight for the entire Arkham community. In a sense, the developers are no longer tipping the hat to the Arkham community. They're telling the Arkham community, like, we have a game that we think you might enjoy, or if you participate in this game, you're not going to feel like a stranger. This is what I think this statement is. I don't necessarily think this was just a coincidence to have a scene of her basically jump into the Arkham or prison, the Blackgate prison. Sorry, why do I keep saying Arkham? The Blackgate prison, just to do this move, and then they move away. I think it's actually a really huge deal. Now, before we even continue, let me show you a picture that one of our audience members in this community, Suspicious Tension, shared with me just recently. So he pretty much sent me this particular, shot, and I thought, I've got to show this to everyone, man. And he titled it "When Worlds Collide." So appreciate you, bro, for sharing this particular, image with me. And it's a image of Batman in Blackgate Prison. You see the fire and the ashes that are pretty much, moving up in the air. And then you see Batgirl in kind of a similar position. There seems to be some kind of a foreshadowing going on, and I strongly believe we're going to continue to see more and more of this as time goes on. So this Batgirl trailer really does have a lot in it, and that's what I first said when we started the video, that to me is just a really interesting, representation of the character. Not only that, they have some really cool, crazy skins. Like, I'm not really a big skin person, but the heck is this outfit? It looks freaking cool. Like, you have to give it to these folk. Y'all need to give a raise to your costume design team. Warner Brothers Games Montreal, you need to get them, make them a cake, get them, candy, and then a check. They need to see that their work is being appreciated in the community. And I'm saying this from somebody who's the least likely person to even be excited about costumes or skins in a video game. Like, when I saw the pre-order bonuses and they were like, it's a skin, I was like, I'm buying the base version straight up. I didn't even care about that. But in seeing some of these skins that are here, it takes a lot for me to be moved to purchase a game and say, I really want to see some of these outfits. And I think if the developers are able to put their hands to deck and continue to make more of these, they will really create a fanfare that Marvel Avengers could not necessarily create. And if they make it where it's actually microtransaction free, they need to make sure that they're cautious of that, because that pre-order bonus kind of feels somewhat weird. But they make it where you can earn some of these other skins, or at least earn every skin based on different activities that you do without having to use any in-game, nasty, slimy, whatever. Then I think they're going to pretty much win the goodwill of the community. Because this skin is actually pretty beastly looking. The way they actually have it set up, the way the gear is, and then their cape physics is actually pretty good. I know somebody said something about the cape physics a while ago with Batgirl in that pre-alpha gameplay, and I said yes, that pre-alpha gameplay did not necessarily bring the best out of her cape physics, but now, it's Unreal Engine. Clothes physics is actually not too bad to do in that engine. So there are people who do it freelance everywhere. It's insane. If you're in the ecosystem, you'll see that, even regular devs are doing it. Look at the wind blowing on, that cape right there when she's standing in front of her dad's statue. I strongly believe that the game was already in its base framework at the time they were showing everything at that DC fandom event. I truly believe that they had already kind of finished, for the most part, the game. Just like Rocksteady and Stephen Hill said in some presentation a while ago, that usually what they'll do with the video game, if they have a concept, is they'll build the game over 6 months. They'll build the entire game. That's crazy. That's a lot of work, but it's kind of a skeleton in a sense. So these folk probably already had done something like that, and were putting the finishing touches and putting the cleaning up to the game when DC Fandom event came around in 2020. And then by 2021's DC Fandom event, they were probably somewhere within the work. They had already delayed it, giving themselves a little bit more time, and then made that decision quietly, even though it was a very, very unpopular decision, to actually change up the entire game to be only current gen. The next thing, though, that we would like to see, folk, in my opinion, and this skin is also pretty nice. Look, the shoulders. Now, the reason this is also different from the other one, even though her hair is allowed to, her mask usually that's for her hair. She's got long hair. Is the shoulder, armor that's actually somewhat, maybe a piece of her gauntlets, if you were to actually ask me, but that's a side note. But the reason I think they made that decision is because, and they waited that long, is because they were probably trying to finish up what the issue was with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and then decided we're just going to go current gen. So now I believe that the next thing they need to do is show us the reason why the game is a current gen only game, in terms of things like the NVIDIA and AMD support with higher frame rates, better reflections, DLSS, all of those different things that are computationally beneficial for a game that is that resonates with the current gen, because even if you look at, they say Spider-Man Miles Morales, it does have a lot of those capabilities even on the console version. And then the new Spider-Man remaster that's going to be coming out in August, they just showcase some of those capabilities as well. But I'm going to stop here and we're going to just continue from this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, because this trailer, in my opinion, was actually pretty good. I thought everything about it was quite solid. I thought the way they presented her, even though it wasn't more gameplay-y, it was a lot more cinematic, in my opinion. But I still appreciate the way that they did it. This is, in my opinion, what should have been done and started with to create a lot of awareness and create a lot of excitement. But nonetheless, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys' support. If you want to hang around the Video Game Fight School community, there are some really awesome folk out here. They've been on this platform since the day I started making YouTube videos surrounding this game, and they've been very, very influential and implemental to helping the channel and even helping the community as well. So we'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for watching the video. Peace out.